Take a look at this room. This isn't a picture of a lazy person. In fact, it is not a picture of a moral failing or a bad personality at all. This is a picture of a brain that is overwhelmed, burnt out, or running on a different operating system. For decades, we have confused a messy environment with a flawed character. The shame and judgment that comes with that misunderstanding can be paralyzing. But what if that mess was not a problem to be ashamed of, but a signal to be understood? In this video, we are going to uncover the real psychology of mess, and it has nothing to do with being a bad person. Whether you are the one living in the mess or you are the tidy person frustrated by it, you have felt the friction this can cause. It is a source of deep personal shame, constant low-level anxiety, and even arguments that can fracture relationships. The core of the problem is that we are all using one word, messy, to describe many different underlying conditions. That is like using the word sick to describe a common cold, a broken leg, and a heart condition all at once. Today, we are going to give you a more precise toolkit by exploring the four main psychological profiles of mess. We will look at the overwhelmed brain, the emotional brain, the neurodivergent brain, and the conditioned brain. By the end, you will not only understand which one resonates most with you, but you will have a new set of tools to address it. And stick around for the end, because we will have a practical guide with strategies tailored for each brain type. First, let's talk about the most common reason for situational messiness, the overwhelmed brain. Every person has a finite amount of mental energy each day to manage tasks, make decisions, and regulate impulses. Psychologists call the system that manages this energy your executive function. Think of your executive function as the CEO of your brain, sitting in a big office and directing all the operations. This CEO has to approve budgets, manage employees, and make strategic decisions all day long. Now, imagine you are a high achiever like Sarah, a lawyer who spends her entire day making high-stakes decisions and managing complex cases. Her brain's CEO is a top performer from 9 to 5, dealing with constant demands and fires. When she gets home, her decision-making budget for the day is completely spent. The pile of mail on her counter is not just mail, it is a dozen tiny decisions in disguise. Should this be shredded, filed, or responded to? When the CEO of her brain is exhausted from the day job, approving the clean desk or sort mail project is the first thing to get dropped. This is not a failure of her will, it is a failure of her available resources. She has what many people call decision fatigue. This leads to avoiding tasks that seem simple on the surface, but are actually complex chains of small choices. For someone experiencing burnout or intense stress, their home environment is often the first casualty. The brain is simply prioritizing survival-level functions over non-essential ones like aesthetic order. So if your house is messy because you are just trying to get through the day, you are not lazy. You are in resource conservation mode. It is a logical response to being overwhelmed. And that explains a huge piece of the puzzle for many people. But for some, it is not just a lack of mental energy. It is a lack of all energy, which brings us to the emotional brain. Our physical environment is often a direct reflection of our internal emotional world. When that inner world is clouded by depression, anxiety, or trauma, the outer world can quickly follow suit. Consider depression, which is far more than just feeling sad. Two of its key symptoms are anhedonia, the inability to feel pleasure, and avolition, a severe lack of motivation. When you are experiencing avolition, the thought of getting up to put a cup in the dishwasher can feel like being asked to climb a mountain. And with anhedonia, the reward center of your brain is offline. There is no satisfying, a clean kitchen feeling waiting for you at the end. So you have an impossible task with no reward, which is a recipe for inaction. This is how doom piles begin to form. A doom pile is not just clutter, it is a pile of delayed decisions and deferred energy. Each item represents a task that required more energy than was available at that moment. Anxiety works differently, often creating a physical manifestation of a chaotic inner world. When your mind is racing with 1,000 worries, the idea of creating external order can feel impossibly overwhelming. In a cruel twist, the resulting clutter then feeds back into the anxiety, creating a vicious cycle of stress and mess. Similarly, for those with a history of trauma, the environment can be a complex issue. A messy space might feel unsafe and chaotic, while for others, the process of cleaning itself can feel like a violation or a loss of control. The key takeaway is that when the emotional brain is in distress, basic functioning becomes difficult. A messy room is not a sign of someone who does not care. It can be the cry for help from someone who is struggling to cope. The mess is a symptom of the real problem, not the problem itself. If this is you, please know you are not failing. You are surviving, and that takes an incredible amount of strength. Now, let's shift gears and talk about a brain that is wired differently from the ground up, the neurodivergent brain. For my friends with ADHD, much of what I am about to say will likely sound very familiar. A core challenge for many with ADHD is a concept related to object permanence. The saying, "out of sight, out of mind," is not just a catchy phrase, it is a daily reality. If you put your keys in a drawer, they do not just become tidy, they cease to exist in your mental landscape. This leads to a coping mechanism where important things are kept in one's line of sight. To a neurotypical person, this looks like chaos. But for an ADHD brain, a messy desk is not chaos. It is a visual to-do list. The unpaid bill is on the desk not because of laziness, but to ensure it gets paid. The book for a new project is left out to remind them to start it. This is also why doom piles or doom boxes are so common. They're collections of items that do not have a clear, immediate home and require too much executive function to process. Putting things away requires a process with multiple steps that the ADHD brain struggles to initiate and complete. Think about why many with ADHD benefit from clear backpacks or storage bins. It is a way to keep things visible and therefore real without creating visual chaos. So if you have been called messy your whole life, but know that you are actually trying to create a functional system for your brain, you are not alone. It is not that your system is wrong. It is that the world was built for a different kind of brain. Your brain is not broken. It is just running a different operating system, one that needs a different user manual. And that is a perfectly valid way to exist. Finally, there is one more category that can stand alone or intersect with all the others: the conditioned brain. This is about the power of habit and the environments we grew up in. Our brains are fundamentally wired to conserve energy, which is why we form habits. A habit is just an action your brain has automated so it does not have to think about it anymore. Think about the classic habit loop: a cue, a routine, and a reward. The cue might be coming home from work. The routine is dropping your coat and bag on the chair instead of hanging them in the closet. The reward is the immediate relief of not having to think about it and being able to move on to something else. This loop, repeated daily, becomes a deeply ingrained neural pathway. Our upbringing plays a huge role in forming these initial habits. If you grew up in a chaotic household where things were never put away, you may never have learned the systems for staying tidy. Your baseline for normal is simply different. Conversely, growing up in an overly sterile or strict environment can sometimes lead to rebellion in adulthood, where messiness becomes a form of freedom. Unlike the other brain types, the conditioned brain is less about innate wiring or mental state and more about learned behaviors. This is both a challenge and an opportunity. It is challenging because habits are hard to break, but it is an opportunity because new habits can be learned. Of all the categories, this is the one most amenable to change through conscious effort and system building, provided it is not tangled with the other three. So, we have covered a lot of ground, from overwhelmed CEOs to ADHD coping mechanisms. If this way of looking at the psychology behind our everyday lives resonates with you, consider subscribing. We are all about understanding the why here. Okay, that was a lot of theory. Let's make this practical. Understanding is the first step, but action is where change happens. The key is to work with your brain, not against it. For the overwhelmed brain, your enemy is decision fatigue, so your goal is to eliminate choices. Try the one-touch rule. Anything you touch, you deal with immediately, instead of setting it down to decide later. For the emotional brain, compassion is your main tool. You do not need a perfect home, you need a functional home. Good enough is in fact good enough. Focus on one thing that will bring you a moment of peace, like clearing just the kitchen sink, and let the rest go for now. For the neurodivergent brain, you must externalize your brain and build a system you can see. Clear bins, label everything, and live by the mantra, function over form, clarity over clutter. And for the conditioned brain, your path is to consciously build new, tiny habits.
Start by habit stacking. After you make your morning coffee, take one dish to the dishwasher.
So, which of these brain types did you see yourself in? The most important thing to take away from this is that the story we tell ourselves about messiness has been wrong. We have been treating a symptom as a character flaw. The truth is, your messy room is not a moral failing. It is a data point. It is a piece of information telling you that you might be overwhelmed, struggling emotionally, or that your environment is not set up for the way your brain works. So the next time you see that messy room, whether it is your own or someone else's, try to see the story behind it. And if you are the tidy person, before you ask, why don't you just clean it, try asking, what is making it hard to clean right now? The goal is not just a clean house, it is a more compassionate and understanding world, starting with ourselves. Thanks for watching. If this video brought you some relief or understanding, please like it and subscribe for more. It truly helps us make more videos like this one.